Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My elderly neighbor completely loses it over me planting clover in my lawn. After that, am I the jerk for walking out of the airport when I saw my husband's mom standing there with her luggage? And after that, I didn't tell my girlfriend and her family that I can speak Japanese. Now they're mad at me. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen loses her Steam account. Don't do it, Reddit boy. I've got so many games on there, bruh. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My elderly neighbor completely loses it over me planting clover in my lawn. We own our house and it backs onto a big field. Our neighbors on one side are our age, in their 30s, and they planted a micro clover lawn a few years ago and we love it. It's lush, indigenous, and great for pollinators. We decided to get one ourselves this year. When our lawn was torn up, however, the neighbors on our other side, who are over 75 years old, were livid in a way we didn't expect. I bake bread every week and always bring some over, and this last weekend, they wouldn't answer the door. I left it on the porch and found it the next morning, chucked into the dirt. I brought over a new bag of buns thinking it was a mistake, and the male neighbor answered the door and started yelling at me about how he can't believe we're doing this, that it looks heinous. Will take all year to grow, and it's going to encourage even more people to be radical in their homes. I was really taken aback. Since then, we've had the cops called on us twice for noise disturbances. We live with cats and we are very introverted. So much so, we're often both wearing headphones while doing whatever at night. Then I found out from the neighbors on his other side that he's trying to get a petition to force both of our houses to comply with standard grass. There are no city regulations on this right now, but it is a small city with a ridiculous council, so who knows what he'll manage. Was it that radical to change our lawn? It was a pricey change, but made a lot of sense to use for the environment and for our personal enjoyment. Not the jerk, and consult with a lawyer and record and document everything they do regarding this. OP. I think it helps that I'm not American, and thus litigation is highly unlikely. More likely to try to get the city to pressure me, but I'm not too worried about that. I forced the city to let me put in a community garden at the community center 2 years ago. I can force this too. I just wanted to know if I was missing something critical in my behavior that made these choices of theirs make sense. I think it's wonderful. Clover is a very lush and pretty. Plus, the positives for the environment, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Sometimes elderly people don't behave in a completely rational way. I'd suggest a fence. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know. Bruh, it's 2022. Grass is so overrated. Am I the jerk for walking out of the airport when I saw my husband's mom standing there with her luggage? I, 30 female, don't have the best relationship with my husband's mom. Since day one, she tried to make remarks and compare me to her. She then tried to get on my good side and started overly praising everything I do, and sometimes even copies me. Like one time when she literally dyed her hair purple just like mine, and when everyone pointed out how ridiculous she looked, she actually blamed me and accused me of trying to make a joke out of her. So anyways, my husband and I took 2 weeks off work to go visit some places out of the country. Tourism, in other words. Thing is, I was the one who saved up for and arranged for the trip. My husband was responsible for booking the tickets. My husband's mom wanted to come along and threw temper tantrums when I said no. She called, texted, sent people to talk me into letting her come, even threatened to call the police and make some complaint up to get us to stay if she can't come. My husband said we should just take her, but I told him he was wrong to tell her about the trip in the first place. He gave me an ultimatum, said he wouldn't go if she can't come, and I told him I'd gladly call his bluff, which made him take his words back and say, "Fine, I will tell her to stop it because we won't take her." Things got quieter, suspiciously quieter. The day of the trip came and we got to the airport at 2 p.m. My husband was walking ahead of me and was looking left and right, like he was looking for someone. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He led me to the waiting area, and first thing I saw was his mom standing there with her luggage. I froze in my spot. I felt a cold wave washing over me, and I was fuming inside. She and my husband were hugging. That's why I quietly turned around and started walking towards the exit. My husband followed me while shouting at me to stop. He tried to stop me, but I told him off the harshest way possible. He tried to say I was overreacting and that his mom was there anyway, and I should let it go and not mess up the trip for us. I told him he and his mom could still go and that I was going home. I went home and sobbed into my dog's fur for several minutes. Turned out, he booked her a ticket without me even knowing. An hour later, he came home yelling and raging about how pathetic and spiteful I was to walk out and go home and ruin the trip last minute. I told him he caused this to happen. He said that I was being so hard on his mom and it's ridiculous. I refused to fight anymore, but he kept on berating me and then called my family to tell them that the trip was canceled and that it was because of me. My family said that I shouldn't have ruined it for myself and should have just sucked it up and done my best to enjoy it. Did I really overreact? I don't want to call the divorce card, but divorce. You told your boundaries, you said no. She crossed it. Your husband told you he would tell her no. He lied. He tried to pin you in a corner by not saying anything and bringing her anyways and got upset you refused to be part of his little trap. And then to berate you? He's not a good person. He needs to go. Not the jerk. Exactly. I would divorce him. He lacks a backbone and the ability to stand by your side. Time to cut your losses and move on. Jumping in to add that nowhere in OP's post does she state, "My husband is a wonderful, caring, helpful person and we love each other so much. This is so unlike him." Very telling. I agree that this is relationship ending. Unfortunately, this seems less like a lack of backbone to me and more like values his mom more than his significant other and is willing to use his backbone to sabotage significant other and lie. At the end of the day, not really better for the significant other, but from the outside, he looks actively harmful, rather than a grown-up kid who never learned to stand up to mom. Sometimes the divorce card needs to come out, and this is one of them. Only part of this I don't agree with. OP should have gone to the ticket booth, gotten her ticket changed for anywhere else, and gone to enjoy herself alone. Let the other two have their romantic time together because it sounds like he's married to her. Not the jerk. He gave you an ultimatum. No loving partner would ever put you in that position. He's a mummy's boy, and she's manipulative and toxic. You have every right to enjoy a holiday with your husband without them behaving like kids. You did the right thing. The next right thing to do is leave. He doesn't respect you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. It wouldn't be a Reddit stories video without a bunch of comments telling someone to divorce their significant other. But seriously though, don't stay with this guy. I didn't tell my girlfriend and her family that I can speak Japanese. Now they're mad at me. I, 18 female, am Japanese descent. It's not in my surname because it's only on my mother's side and I only have my father's surname. But I grew up at my maternal great-grandmother's and grandmother's house, who spoke almost 70% of the time in Japanese, so I can speak Japanese, and so does my whole family, including my parents. I live in another state, far from where my parents live. I've been dating Laura, 19 female, for 5 months. She is also a descendant, but unlike me, she has Asian traits. She knows I am of Japanese descent, but we never got into the conversation whether I speak it or not. She never asked, and I never commented. It's been about 2 months that I've had lunch every 2 weeks at her parents' house where she lives, both of whom are of Japanese descent, and a funny thing always happened. They would talk in Japanese, some things like, "Go make the bed, the dishes for lunch are yours," to the parts that spoke bad about me. She didn't need everything on her plate, or strange way to dress. My girlfriend used to scold her parents, also in Japanese, and this has been the case for the last 2 months. I'm not necessarily offended, but I find it extremely funny that they think I don't know, and they talk about everything in Japanese, thinking I'm lost in the conversation. It is worth mentioning that they keep the conversation 97% of the time in Portuguese. My parents came over this weekend, and Laura's parents insisted that we go to their house so they could get to know each other. At some point, my mother had to leave the table to talk to my grandmother, and when she came back, she said in Japanese, "Your grandmother sent a kiss," and I replied, "Send one of mine to her later." I know Laura and her parents were surprised, but they didn't comment, and dinner stayed that way for the rest of the night. After I dropped my parents off at the hotel, Laura asked to talk to me via video call and said that I embarrassed her parents because they didn't know that I understood and spoke in Japanese, and they talked about family things in another language, precisely because I would not understand and would not make it boring. I replied saying that, "Just like they badmouthed me, didn't they?" But I didn't want to talk about it, and you never asked, despite knowing that a part of my family is of Japanese descent. She still stood her ground, saying that I could have said and avoided all the awkwardness at her parents' dinner. I didn't really do it on purpose. I just responded unintentionally to my mother talking in a language I'm fluent in. Am I the jerk? Extra. I don't live with Laura, so it didn't happen that I spoke in Japanese with my relatives in front of her. Yes, it was the first time she had met my parents. Not the jerk. If they're going to badmouth you within earshot, they should be embarrassed regardless. Disappointed your girlfriend isn't defending you though. Yeah, these people have some nerve to talk crap about someone that's right there. Not the jerk. It's gotta be a bilingual thing. I see this all the time, including in my own family and friends. Not the jerk. I'm white passing Latina, and I embarrass people on the regular because they speak in Spanish in front of me, assuming I don't understand. That assumption is their fault, not mine. Am I the jerk for ruining someone's day during my wedding? I, 26 female, recently just got married a few days ago. It was a traditional Punjabi wedding, and I had an absolute blast. For some context, I have 3 brothers and no sisters. In traditional Indian weddings, there are certain ceremonies where you would need your female relatives to be a part of. Since I have no sisters, my cousins stepped in. My families have always had a strained relationship with one another, always due to some petty fights that occurred years ago that some of the relatives just can't let go of. Most of the cousins don't partake in this because we're aware that it's ridiculous. I have one cousin I'll name X, who's 18 female. She's extremely nice, but unfortunately super shy and timid. She has always been like this, and most of us have just grown up being protective of her, especially since she is one of our youngest cousins. During one of the ceremonies, I insisted that my cousin be a main part of it because I know she would genuinely enjoy it, but would be too shy to volunteer herself or ask for it. One of my cousin's fiancés, 28 female, however, is quite the opposite. She constantly likes to put herself in the middle of everything, despite already being told of her given duties during the ceremony. This is the part where I may be the jerk. During one of the ceremonies, you're supposed to have one of your female relatives sit behind you on stage and basically just take care of you, fix your hair or your clothes, etc. I specifically told Cousin X that she would be the one to do this for me. However, when the day came, my cousin's fiancé was the one who took her spot. I was confused, but could not do much. After the ceremony, I found Cousin X, and she explained to me that the fiancé who took her spot had basically scolded her and yelled at her, saying that she should be the one doing it since Cousin X is still young and doesn't know anything. She then told Cousin X to go sit down with the other guests, despite Cousin X's protests. Cousin X's mother, my auntie, who I absolutely adore and has been a huge help with the wedding, was quite upset with this, but did not want to cause a scene and just told Cousin X it's okay. When I heard this, I was furious. The fiancé took what was meant to be a special moment and made it all about herself. I set the fiancé down and told her that she had no right to do what she did, and I was extremely upset for her doing so. Apparently, she was so upset by this conversation, she refused to come for the other ceremonies the next day. I was fine with this because I generally don't like adults who throw temper tantrums, but my cousin says that I had no right to speak to his fiancé like that, and now his entire family has been constantly saying a lot of negative things about my family and the whole situation. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Man, a Desi wedding is not complete until all the relatives are mad at each other. I hope you had a really nice wedding and that Cousin X was able to help you out in other ways. What did your parents think of all of this? OP. My mother is no longer around. She passed 6 years ago, which is why my auntie has been such a huge help. She basically stepped in and took the role of my mother without me even having to ask because she understood. They even helped to pay for parts of the wedding, especially with the hall rentals, the catering, and the decorations of each ceremony. My father says that I should just apologize and get the whole thing over with, but I'm hesitant because why should I allow her to just get away with doing this? It's our Desi way to tell the kids to apologize. Doesn't matter who's right or wrong. I think you need to talk to your auntie and Cousin X and tell them what's going on. They're probably facing some blowback for this as well. I'd keep a united front. She's your second mom. OP. Update. Just got a call from my photographer. A woman called him from an unknown number and said she would pay him twice the amount of money I paid him if he deleted all of my wedding photos, and then told me that the memory card was corrupted. I honestly do not even know what is wrong with this woman and why on earth my cousin would even consider marrying her. I'm guessing your cousin and aunt will only see her true colors after marriage, and guess what? Karma does come knocking. Now the photographer should have said, okay, taken the money, and still given you the photos free of charge. Imagine her face when you showed her the wedding photos. Think in her fury she would have confessed what she did? OP. Honestly, I'm just laughing at this point because the photographer and I went to primary and secondary school together. Basically, we're classmates for a decade. Huge funny moment imagining his face when she called him. Sure, I'll call the tenant. This story is about a job I just quit, and I doubt anyone there uses Reddit, so I'll share it with you. We were moving to another office, so things were chaotic. Days were really hot, so when we discovered our new office didn't have any AC, we were crushed. We tried to work there anyway, but 2 members started getting dizzy and weak, so we called our boss. He was solving some problems with our previous location, but told us to go home and not come in the next day since he'd buy a new AC unit and install it then. We were happy with the free day off, and my boss went on his way to buy the equipment. This story is about what happened when he bought it. So this new office was somewhere fancy. Our boss was a tenant in this building, and there were doctors, lawyers, dentists, all kinds of fancy people. Everyone wore a suit and tie, and since most of the tenants were rich, the building's workers were super polite, mostly because some tenants were rude to them, acted entitled, and tried to get them fired for petty reasons. Anyway, my boss called some of his friends and said, "Hey, would you help me install an AC unit in my new office? I'll pay you with some beers," and they accepted. Since it was, again, really hot, my boss and his friends went there the next morning wearing tank tops, shorts, and sandals. They were greeted by someone who worked there. I don't remember his name, but I'll call him assistant, that knew who my boss was and would follow him around, answer his questions, help him with any info about the building or the room. You know, a good human being. He was supposed to know all tenants, so everybody liked him, but I guess he wasn't in a leadership position because his workmates didn't seem to enjoy his presence. He didn't seem to care though. So assistant greeted my boss and followed him to our new room. My boss said he saw the receptionist look at them with disgust because of their clothes, but didn't think much about it. What were they supposed to do? There was only one entrance. They went upstairs and started working. Eventually, my boss noticed he forgot some tool in his car. No problem. Assistant went with him, they got it and came back. And again, the receptionist looked annoyed. My boss, who I admit wasn't the most organized, noticed he forgot to buy something. Okie dokie, assistant, always happy to help, followed him to the entrance and waited for him to buy the tool somewhere near and came back. Again, as they got in, receptionist looked upset. For the 3rd time, my boss had to go through the reception to do something or get something he forgot. Assistant went with him, assuring him it was okay and he had every right to come and go as he pleased. But this time, receptionist had enough. When my boss got into the building, he saw receptionist come in his direction, fuming, but he didn't say anything to my boss. Instead, he went straight to the assistant and, completely ignoring my boss, said something along the lines of, "What the heck is this? Why are these people coming and going like there's no order in this building? Why don't you do anything?" Assistant just looked at him and said calmly, "I'm sorry, but they need to install their new AC today, so that tomorrow the team can work without any interruption or discomfort." "I don't care," said receptionist. "These people are annoying our staff, our guests, and our tenants. This building is no place for them. If you don't stop this mess right now, I'm gonna call the tenant and tell them you're allowing such people in his new office." I think you can guess what happened next. According to my boss, assistant's face lit up and he smiled. "Oh, really? Please do. You can talk to the tenant right now if you'd like." And he turned to my boss, who just looked at him with an innocent, "Yes, how can I help you?" face. My boss said the receptionist's face went white. He tried to say something, but he couldn't pick the words, so he just left in a hurry. My boss and the assistant laughed about it a while and went back to the office. The AC got installed, and we worked the next day with ease. What was up with that receptionist? New tenant moving in. Of course there will be folks going in and out. None of them in business clothes. Workers moving furniture in boxes, HVAC techs, electricians, network folks, etc. I've moved offices, working from both sides. I've been a mover and a network person. When I was going to be pulling cables, installing racks, installing ports, I know I'm going to be crawling into some dirty places, so no business clothes. As a new tenant, I'm still in working clothes, as I know I'm going to be directing the movers, looking at the work of the skilled trades, and moving my personal stuff too. Am I the jerk for not wanting my brother at my wedding because of a prank he did on my fiance years ago? I, 24 male, don't have much of a relationship with my brother, 25 male. We hardly talk because he takes things too far with his pranks. One in particular, my fiance, Allie, was really hurt over. We all went to the same high school. We had a few classes together all 4 years. In our junior year, my brother and some other people heard Allie had a huge crush on me. So what did he do? He got her number and started texting her pretending to be me. But he was able to keep her from making the connection by telling her that we can't be a couple in real life because my parents are super strict and my brother would tell on us if he saw us at school. So the relationship was only over text for 3 months. It all came to a head because she wanted to know if we could stop hiding being a couple, and he told her, yeah. He had her approach me during lunch, and obviously I was confused. Him and his stupid friends were recording from another table, laughing. The two of us found out what was going on. One of her friends thought I was in on it and called me names because she found Allie crying in the bathroom after. I felt so bad, guys. That video circulated around, so lots of people at school laughed about it, and it was just really humiliating for her. I apologized to her for what happened and swore it was all my brother. Our senior year, we only had one class together, but I tried talking to her more. Then, coincidentally, in our first year at community college, we ended up in the same math class. We became study buddies, and that's where I caught feelings for her. We started going out. Now, after 5 years together, I asked her to marry me. One thing we decided is for sure neither of us want him at our wedding. I know we ended up together, but it was still something deeply hurtful to her because she was still made fun of about it even in our last year of high school. Just the fact that he did this to someone random he didn't even know just to mess with me knowing she had a crush. His pranks haven't changed anyways. He still goes too far with them, and he's not even sorry about what he did to her. Mostly, my parents are the ones advocating for him to come since he's my only brother and he wants to be there. He keeps saying Allie needs to stop being so sensitive about it because a wedding is a big deal and the whole family should be there celebrating with us. Allie feels bad, but she really doesn't want him there, and I don't either, but it's causing this stupid conflict now. We're getting married really soon. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Tell him he needs to stop being so sensitive about not being invited, and that due to past history and his current lack of empathy or remorse, he will not be invited at all. Ensure that your parents are aware that there will be someone there to escort him out if he shows up uninvited. And why does he want to get invited to the wedding at all? Oh yes, to play another stupid prank on her, or to stand up while giving speech and telling his tasteless story about how he treated her, as if he wants to celebrate those two. He's just interested in being a jerk. Not the jerk. Your brother is not a prankster, he's a bully. The joke's only funny if everyone is laughing. The fact that he refuses to acknowledge that what he did was wrong says everything about just what kind of person he is. Don't enable him by rug sweeping his behavior. He needs to be called out on it. Dumb customer calling restaurant. I work in a pretty small restaurant. We're very busy with walk-ins and we have a lot of DoorDash and those app orders. For some backstory, we have some house sauces that we have to make and fill in hundreds of cups ourselves daily. Filling the cups takes me legit 3 hours as we have several different options, and I'm also dealing with the register and customers in between, etc. Those sauces are gone in a heartbeat because they are really delicious and everyone loves them. Every meal comes with one sauce. If you want extra sauce, they're $1 each. They're pretty big cups. And if someone wants just one extra sauce, I more often than not give them for free. The times I don't are the times we have very little batch left, and I know I'll need it for the actual orders, and I don't have time to refill, only because I gave out for free. But when you want 5 extra sauces, well, then you have to pay. I can't just give out that many extra sauces because 1, my boss would not be happy about it, and 2, it's not reasonable since so many ask for several extra sauces for free, especially the app orders. I'd end up giving out 100 extra sauces on my shift only. The entitled moron calls in yesterday, and oh goodness, she enraged me. Moron. Hi, how are you? My name is Moron, and I just placed an order through DoorDash. Did you get it? Me. Yes, I did. Actually, I forgot to add sauces, and we love sauces. Can you please put in a couple of every sauce you have? How many do you want? 6 would be great. Me. Okay, no problem. We actually have this thing on DoorDash where I can add whatever extra you want and they'll charge you. Charge me? You can't just give me the sauces? I always order and then call the restaurant and they send me free sauces. This is our first time ordering with you. Me, sarcastically. Oh, but I thought you said that you just forgot to add the sauces, so you didn't forget, because that's what you said? Karen, biggest sigh and attitude. How much are the extra sauces? Me, $1 each. Okay, I guess then just add 1. I mean, usually we just call and get the sauces for free, but it's okay. Me, I'm just very confused because you called me and say that you forgot adding sauces, and now that you have the option, you're saying that you didn't forget, but just wanted to call to get free sauces. I always do that and never had any problems. This is like I said, our first time ordering from you guys. Honestly, I'm done with customers at this point. Just be upfront and say you want sauces for free. I'd respect that much more. And I don't give a hoot if it's your first time, because it's my 20th time today having people either call or write in the orders, "Please add 4 extra sauces." Stop being so cheap and add whatever extra you want when you order. When I order delivery myself, I go and add exactly what I want and would never dream of calling and begging for free stuff. Another customer had the audacity to write in the notes on their DoorDash order, "The last couple of times I've asked for extra sauces and I never get it. I want 3 extra sauces, and don't even bother making my order if you don't include the extra sauces." I immediately canceled the order. Am I being unreasonable? I love when people order a cup of soup, 8 ounces, but tell me to fill up the container all the way, 16 ounces. Like, nah, not unless we're about to throw that crap out. Refuse to remove the carpenter bees? I'll tear up your lawn. A few years ago, I lived in a scummy apartment complex when my first kid was born. Everything was fine for the first few months. Then it just got terrible. Their gate broke, so everyone treated us as a free parking lot for the bus. They wouldn't tow anyone. The ceiling started dipping. They did nothing, and our door frames broke from the pressure. Then the infestation happened. We had bees, we had rodents, and then they'd send out maintenance and they'd come back. The problem was our neighbors adjacent to us were awful, and their trash attracted gnats. Carpenter bees swarmed my front door and infested the stairs so bad you couldn't walk in a 5-foot radius of it or our front door. We lived in an apartment building on a hill, so there were 2 bottom floors dependent upon which side you were on. I was on the absolute bottom floor where you would go down from the parking area at the top of the hill, 2nd floor ground level. So to avoid the bees, I'd have to walk down the steep hill with my newborn's car seat up on my chest. We asked them to send an exterminator for months. They didn't. With the newborn and falling down the hill, we decided enough was enough and we wanted out of our lease. We found a place and said, "If the carpenter bees are not removed, I'll have to drive the truck onto the field around this steep hill." I guess they thought I was playing, but they said, "You do what you gotta do." I made it clear the friends that were helping me move were allergic to bees, so I wasn't putting them at risk, period. On the day of the move, it was especially muddy from having rained the few days before, but it was a hot and sunny day. Sure enough, the bees were swarming. So I did what I said I would do. I moved the truck onto the muddy field to pack up my 1st floor apartment. Now, because of the angle of the hill, I wasn't able to come in from the field. I had to come from the backside, floor 2, and drive down. So it took 15 minutes of sharp turning, but I did it. Going down, a couple tires got stuck in the mud, so I rapidly accelerated while moving the steering wheel. Now, I could have decided to be more strategic, but I was upset. I made it make a huge mess. I tore up the front side and the back going up. Their maintenance was upset. My neighbors backed me up that they really brought it upon themselves. Wouldn't you know it, within 30 minutes, they put up flyers on doors that they were doing something about the bees, but it would be the next day after I needed to move out. The aftermath. I moved out completely and left my apartment nice so they couldn't take my deposit off on the apartment as no damage was personally done to the apartment. That money was a credit to be used, or not because we broke our lease quickly. The landscape was a muddy disaster, so they had to pay $3,500 for it. They sent me a bill, and I said I was not paying because the conditions were atrocious to move out and potentially hazardous to someone's life. In my state, that's enough to quantify dismissal here. So they sent it to the credit bureaus, but I provided all the written notices, my neighbors' video statements, and showed there was literally no other alternative. I showed they had months to fix the problem, but chose to conveniently schedule to fix it the next day after my keys were due to be turned in. It was quickly dropped from my credit report, and they were deemed legally liable for their own damages. I never paid a dime, but I seriously ruined their lawn. Am I the jerk for calling the person who refused to pay me my winnings? I won a March Madness pool this year. It was a rather large group of people, around 150 people, and everyone paid $10 per entry. I knew a lot of people in the pool, but not everyone. The pool was supposed to pay out 70% to the winner, as well as a lesser amount to the 2nd and 3rd place finishers. We were all required to pay our entry fee to the pool manager, let's call him Sam, prior to the tip-off of the first game. If you didn't pay, you were removed from the pool. Sam has run the pool for several years, but this is the first year I've managed to win. I've known Sam for years, but we're not close, more of a friend type thing. One of the features the pool site has is the ability to send text messages to anyone that opted into that feature. It was basically used to trash talk each other, which was a blast. Anyway, I won around $1,000. I waited for about a week for Sam to Venmo the money, the same way I had sent him my entry fee, but nothing. I reached out to him via text to remind him that I hadn't been paid. He said he would do it. Nothing. Another week passed, so I texted him again. He never responded. I called him. He never picked up or returned my call. I called my brother, since he's much closer to Sam than I am, and asked him to get in touch with Sam for me since he wasn't responding to me. My brother said he would ask Sam for me, but he did tell me that Sam had lost his job a few months ago and had been working odd jobs to bring in some money, so he might have been busy. I pointed out that it would take a minute to send me the money. Finally, Sam called me. He said that he had spent the money on bills and didn't have it to send to me. He did apologize. I told him he needed to get it, that I won and I was entitled to the money. He said there wasn't anything he could do. He didn't have it, but would get it to me as soon as he could. I asked him when, and he said he didn't know. I was angry. I called him a thief and hung up on him. I decided to use the app to text out to everyone that Sam had spent the money that I should have received. It was their money to begin with, and I thought, and still think, that they deserved to know what had happened. Not surprisingly, it blew up. Sam called me, yelling at me for humiliating him. I replied that if you don't want to be called a thief, the best thing to do was not steal. According to Sam, I had cost him a job as he had interviewed with one of the guys in the pool and had been offered it. But after my text, the offer was withdrawn. I don't know if I believe that or not. I could care less what Sam thinks. However, my brother is also saying that I took it too far, that I had kicked a guy when he was down, and that it was a jerk move. I think I was justified in letting everyone know. I'm not the one that cheated anyone. However, I value my brother's opinion. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You were right. Don't steal if you don't want to be called out as a thief. Took it too far? How is sharing the news that the coordinator of the pool is a thief with the people in the pool taking it too far? That's exactly what should have happened, as I doubt you were the only one to win something. He stole from everyone involved and deserves everything coming to him now. The guy that was going to hire him shouldn't be hiring him because now he has proof that the guy's a liar and a thief and will think nothing of taking money from people because he needs it.
Huge shout out to our newest official channel members, AJ Black and Dragon Racer 45. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means the world to Reddit Boy and I. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.